Hey there, guys. Welcome back. Adam with Adam Bro Fitness. Thank you for joining me again today. We've been in a small series that we're using for multiple different outlets. Honestly, we're using it for our podcast and YouTube, and I even use some of these for my clients to help them understand the nuances of approach and things like that. Okay. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, thank you for downloading. And if you feel like we have earned your subscription or the right to your subscription, please subscribe. We would love, or like and share. We would love for you to leave a review if you want. Okay, no pressure. But for those of you who may not know me, my name is Adam, and I am a personal trainer, a functional nutritionist, and a pastor. And I work primarily with people in the nonprofit space, churches, missionaries, charity workers, things like that, where people feel called to do a particular type of work for the betterment of other people or the world itself. And they feel a calling to this type of work. So one of the things I really feel passionate about is helping them to either regain or learn to invest in their health so they can continue to do the work they feel called to do. I do a lot of different types of things. I work one-on-one with people. I work with businesses or churches and work with their staffs, do lots of consultations with people just to help them understand where they are and problem solve and deal with particular situations and come up with strategies for them to take their health to the next level. And it's been a great thing. I've been really enjoyed it, and we're seeing more and more people come on board. So this is a really good thing. So it's much needed. We have pastors and leaders dropping off like flies. Many of them because they're depressed or have anxiety, but some of that has a lot to do with the fact that they're not taking care of themselves. Mentally or physically. So we want to help do our part to remedy that as best we can. We're continuing in a small series here talking about technique and what happens when you get into the gym, how you should approach things, how you should set up things. There is one, you need to realize you need to be in the gym. Like, I know there's like a lot of people are like, you could just use, you just go for walks and stuff like that. But there's a real issue with people who don't resistance train. Not putting your body under stress or strain does not elicit a response that you need. You need muscle mass. You need better bone density. And those things come through resistance training. Excuse me. They come through resistance training. And many people are either intimidated by the gym or just have no idea how to approach it. You have some people who, this is mainly guys. They think I lifted weights once when I was in high school and I'm now 40. So I know exactly how to do this. And there's an arrogance there, which leads to injury as well. But then on the other side, many times ladies are very intimidated and they think people are watching them, things like that. So I want to help take away some of those stigmas and help people to use the gym in a way that is effective for them and help them to get the best results they can with as few injuries or risk of injury as possible. And we do that through resistance training. We use a lot more bodybuilding style training, not bodybuilding the sport, where people are like giant with no body fat and tiny bikinis. That is a sport of bodybuilding. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the technique of training, which is bodybuilding. And it's a very approachable style. It's very scalable. You can use a myriad of different approaches. You can use machines that are quite safe. You can use dumbbells, which are very comfortable for people. You can use barbells. You can use kettlebells. You can use medicine balls. You can use sleds. And there's a lot of things you can use that don't require a ton of athleticism, coordination, or under like previous use experience. All right, especially with machines, especially if you just set the machine up properly, like make sure it's high enough, make sure the seat is in the right spot, make sure the handles or whatever you're grabbing are comfortable, you're in a good position, chances of injury are pretty low. And they're usually just one directional. So you just pull on it. That's all you do. All right. So we want to, in this installment, we're going to talk about some common mistakes I see people do in the gym. And I'm going to try my best not to laugh too much, but I've been doing this a long time, and some things really tickle me. So if you're easily offended, or if you do any of these things, realize it's all in good fun, and no one is perfect. We're all working to get better. Even I make very common mistakes, like newbie mistakes, very often. It's just part of it. Okay. So a couple of mistakes that I see, if we're going to dive right into this, is probably one of the most common is people that just don't warm up. They don't do warm-ups. There's a bunch of ways to warm up. You could, get on a treadmill and walk for 5 minutes at an incline. You could ride a bike for a few minutes. You could move around in the gym. You could just, do jumping jacks. There's a lot of things to do, but the reason why you warm up is you just want to prepare the body for output. You want to prepare your body to do work. Okay? A lot of people just go in and they just start grabbing weights and wonder why they get injured, or wonder why their weights are not going up, like they're not getting stronger. Well, because half the time you've spent, the first 15 minutes you spent in your workout, you were just warming up, even though you thought you were working out, right? Because your body wasn't prepared to really put real effort out. Okay? So do your warm-ups. What can a warm-up look like? I prefer to warm up on whatever the first exercise is. Whatever the first exercise is, I usually just do a few extra sets at light weights. Let's say we're doing squats, for instance. I'll just take the bar and I'll work on the movement, and I'll do 10, 12 reps with just the bar. Make sure that I'm moving good, see if there's any sticking points, see if my hips are hurting, is my back okay, make sure my technique and my position feels okay. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still have to work on my technique. I still have to make sure that my positions are good, to still make sure that my hips feel okay. And some days they don't, so I need more warm-ups or whatever. So I prefer to warm up that way. I prefer to warm up with whatever the first exercise is. I just do more really light sets. And then a good rule of thumb is the earlier in the workout you are, the more warm-up sets you need. Okay? The later you get into the workout, the fewer you need, because your body's already warm. So let's say you have a workout and you have 6 exercises. The first 3 exercises, you probably need at minimum 2 to 3 warm-up sets before you start your work sets, which is where you're counting your repetitions and you're recording how much weight you use so that you can progress later. There's a difference. Warm-up sets are not work sets. So like if your coach gives you, 3 sets of 10 on the barbell squat, that's not warm up, 1 set, go home. That's not what that is. That is warm up. You get all your warm-ups done, and then you do 3 work sets. So let's say, what would that look like? You would say, let's say the last time I did squats, I did 135 pounds for 10 reps. Okay, so what would my warm-up sets look like? They would look like the bar for about 10 reps. And then it might look like 95 pounds, so a 25 on each side for 5 or 6 reps. Make sure that I feel good. Make sure that my back and my position feels good. Make sure that my feet are in a good place. Make sure that the movement is going the way I want it to. And then I might go to put a 10 on each side. So now it's 115 pounds. And just do 1 or 2 reps like that. And then I might put on 135 pounds. And I'm going to just try to get 1 more rep than I did last time. Okay? That would be progression. And if you want, you could go 140 pounds and try to do 10 reps. Either way, that's progression. All right? But you do the warm-up sets, And that first set at 135 pounds or 140 pounds, whichever one you choose, that's your first working set. Okay, that's the first set you're going to record. Okay, you only record the sets that are working sets, not your warm-ups. All right, but you make sure you warm up. And then let's say the next exercise is like a hamstring curl. You might only need 2 warm-up sets before you start working. And then on your third exercise, it might be something like calf raises. You might not need any warm-up because you've been using your legs this whole time. So you want to make sure that you're progressing in your warm-up so that you're not risking injury and you're able to perform so that you're not wasting time going to the gym and getting nothing out of it. That is a waste of time. Okay, don't do that. So warm up. Another thing I find people do is they start too heavy. They go in and maybe they haven't done an exercise before and you let their ego get a hold of them and they just start too heavy and they forget all about their technique and the whole point is just to lift the weight. And again, this is resistance training. This isn't weight lifting. Okay, weight lifting means I'm trying to lift as much weight as possible. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're trying to take our joints and our muscles through a full range of motion so that we can make sure that they're getting stronger, healthier over time. And we do that by using good technique and full range of motion. If you start too heavy without warming up or even with a warm up, you just come out of the gate blazing, then you're going to compromise your technique and you're going to compromise your possible health by getting injured, right? Don't start heavy. Other times people come in and they just start so light that nothing is actually happening. Okay, like I have ladies that are like, they can carry their 40-pound child around in one arm for 45 minutes, and they're telling me that these 5-pound dumbbells are really heavy for their shoulder presses. And I'm like, darling, your kid is literally 9 times heavier than that. Okay? Start too light. If you start too light, you're not going to elicit any response, and so you're wasting your time. So we want to make sure that we use the warm-ups to find out where we want to start that is in a good weight range, that's going to elicit a response. It's going to make us push a little bit, but our technique is still solid. Okay? So don't start too heavy and don't start too light, young ladies. Okay? Another thing is people are not aligning and bracing. They just go in and they forget all about setting up for each movement properly. Like you'll see in our other installment where we talk about actual technique and how do we brace and how do our shoulders and like shoulders back and down, making sure our abs and our glutes are slightly tense, making sure our lower back is slightly, or our butt is slightly turned out, lordotic tilt, so that we are putting our spine and everything in a great place to receive the weight. Okay? A lot of times guys, they just get in there and they don't get in alignment. They just start doing stuff and they forget all about the technique. And what this does is it just allows you to get injured faster. Okay? So we always keep an eye on technique. Align yourself and then brace. Like use your core properly. Like remember, you're lifting things, like your body building. You're trying to get stronger. All right? And you do that by doing it properly. Okay? So we want to mitigate risk of injury, right? Another thing is another mistake I see is people just going too fast. They're just going so fast. And this happens a lot with younger guys I see. For some reason they think that if they just smash the reps faster, somehow you're going to get more response. You're not, because time under tension matters. So how long your muscle is under tension really affects how well it grows, okay? Or how much growth is stimulated. So if you're like this is a big common one. You see people doing what's called a tricep push down, where they have like a rope or a handle, and there's a cable machine, and they're pressing down, okay? They're pressing down with their triceps. We're working these muscles back here, okay? We're extending the arms. And what you see is these guys are like, and they're like, I mean, they're more out of breath than their arms are tired, right? So really what we want is we want contraction and then slow, controlled, eccentric. So fast, slow. So really under control, good technique. So if you're moving really fast or you're having to swing things or things like that, you're wasting your time. I see a lot of guys, they grunt and yell a lot, but their technique is terrible. So all the grunting and yelling doesn't do anything. All it does is make people look at you. So don't try to train too fast. Make sure each repetition is under control. Make sure you're in control of what's happening and you're aware of what you're doing. Your technique is on point and you are in control of what's happening. All right? Another thing is people, they're forcing repetitions. This is a big mistake, like forcing repetitions or going past technical failure. We've talked about this. Technical failure is when your technique starts to break down because of your fatigue. All right. So if, for instance, if you are doing, let's say, lat pull downs, that's where you have a bar above you. You're in a seat. You have a bar above you, and you pull the bar down to your chest, and it goes up, and you stretch, and you come back down, right? If you get to the place where you can no longer touch your chest, that is technical failure. You can no longer contract the muscles enough to complete a full repetition. That is technical failure. So what happens is you'll see guys, because the ego gets into it, once they get here, then they start to swing, right? They start doing this kind of stuff. They've gone past technical failure, and now their technique has fallen apart. So we don't even know, like, did you do those last ones? Or do we count those? Yeah, you moved some weight around, but did you actually do the technique? Did you progress at all? Because it seems to me like you just kind of forced some stuff. So you're also risking injury by doing that, and you're not really progressing anymore, and you're increasing your fatigue for no reason. Okay, so technical failure is where you want to stop. All right, don't force your repetitions. Now, sometimes when the weight is getting heavier, you will have to grind a little bit, which we call it in this fitness world. We call it, you might have to grind out the rep a little bit. And by grinding, what that means is you're holding your technique even harder. Like you're white knuckling the technique, and you're pressing through, trying to hold the technique as hard as possible without losing the technique so much that you have to stop. All right. So this usually happens on like your last rep. And then the next rep, your technique would fall apart. So that's when you stop. Okay. So you do have to learn how to grind a rep from time to time, meaning really force and hold on to the technique as much as possible. But going beyond that is usually just a recipe for extra fatigue and risk of injury. So you don't want that. All right. Another thing is people swinging, using momentum, heaving, flailing. You see this a lot with younger guys who are trying really hard to either impress themselves or impress their buddies with them, using weights that are way too heavy. So they're having to use all this momentum. And really, it's like I saw a meme. It's like every exercise is a low back exercise if you do it wrong enough, and that's really what happens. Like I've seen guys pull their low back doing curls because they're curling for their biceps, but the weight's too heavy and they're like arching way back and they're having to swing and use momentum. If you do it wrong enough, you can get injured. So we want to make sure that, remember, strict form is king. This is how we progress. This is how we know that we're getting better. You want to be strict. But you have to learn how to push too. So Don't heave, don't swing, don't lift with your ego. Make sure you're pushing yourself, challenging yourself, but be smart about it. The last thing that I would say is people just rest too short. They get like ADD about it, or they get restless. And this is work. You're gonna do some exercise. You're gonna push yourself. You're gonna need to recover. And most people, I find people start getting bored around a minute, and then they're like, okay, it's time to go. But really, you probably want to rest anywhere from 90 seconds to 3 minutes between sets, depending on how heavy the exercise was. For instance, a caveat there is that ladies tend to be able to use less rest than men. It's just a genetic thing, or it has a lot to do with estrogen and muscle fiber type. But you still need to make sure that you're recovered enough to do another good set next time, okay? So don't get bored. Don't get ADD about training, and you just, you feel like this pressure. You got to go. Or if you do, you're short on time and you need your rest periods to be shorter, make sure you set a timer so that you're maximizing your time as best you can, right? So taking every bit of rest that you can physically take within the time constraints that you have. I set a timer all the time. I usually do 2 to 3 minutes between sets because I'm older and I work out at my house. So nobody's waiting for a machine at my house except me. So, but rest really does matter. It helps you get stronger. It helps you recover. It helps you do a little more work in each session so you're not wasting your time. All right. So these are some of the basic mistakes that I see. If you see mistakes, leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know what you see as mistakes. Let us know if you would add to this list, or maybe you disagree with some of these. That's totally fine. We'd love to hear from you. But these are some of the things that I see. Again, I'm not the number one spectator here, but this is my podcast, so these are the things that I see. And I really am interested to know what you think. But again, technique is king. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to have a level of curiosity and realize that weight training, resistance training is a skill. Skill acquisition takes time and repetition over time. Okay, so you have to practice, and realize you're going to have to constantly monitor it to be better. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still have to work on my technique. I still have to make sure I'm doing it properly. I'm still making sure that I'm warming up well, that I'm not starting too heavy, that I'm not using my ego, right? It's all part of it, all right? So hopefully you enjoyed it. Talk soon.